Yes, I work in many different kinds of surfaces. So sometimes I use blank paper and do like this, and in different formats. Many times lately I've been doing murals, which is more like a huge format, and also work on tattooing that is very more smaller proportions. And each of course, each medium will lead you in certain roads, and they have limitations, and because of the material also. It's not the same a wall than a person. I draw many years before I start tattooing, and actually I was painting a lot before I started tattooing, and then I discovered tattooing through getting tattoos, and I thought it was very easy to build a tattoo machine, homemade tattoo machine, which were like in fashion in that days, in the late 80s in Mexico. So I built a machine, and it was just like a other technique for me, and I could play with my friends and make some tattoos. I didn't take it too seriously. I was doing more painting and comics and more like formal. In those times, I was doing like oil on canvas, very traditional, and like layers. Well, this is like the first time I show this series of 6 drawings. They are all of them done with the black background and the gold or copper color is very shiny and contrast with the black of the background. And it's based mainly on Tibetan drawings, particularly in the Dharmapalas, which are these wrathful deities, which are like in a way very aggressive and very, you can say like a gore. They're all surrounded with dismembered organs of human beings and drinking blood from the top skull of the head, and with only the skin of one person. And so this is in some sense like a little bit contradictory to all the Buddhist imaginary. So I really was curious about them. I started researching and looking to these images a lot, and I really like. So I use them a lot, mix them with other elements. But the base of these paintings is the like Buddhist line, particularly the one from Tibet and Japan. It's to represent how difficult it is to struggle against the like evil forces. These are like the guardians of the Dharma, no? Dharma is like the path you should follow, the righteousness. So these are the guardians. So it's a little bit like a symbolic to how you have to defeat like sickness or vices or all these kind of obstacles that will lead you in a different path that is not the Dharma. So you actually something super positive and compassive, but the image itself is like super violent. Yes, I think normally we are painting until the very last minute, and now we finished like 4 or 5 days before. So that means everything went really good. The dimensions were very different. I never worked in this kind of dimension. It's like very big. In a way, it's easier to paint a large scale, but also the composition is more difficult. Yes, it's also, I took the image from one of these Dharmapalas, and then other images, like for example, this is the feet of Frank Zappa. It's I took it from an album cover of Frank Zappa, and it's like the Seasons to be Jelly, which is a live in Sweden concert. So that's why one of the reasons I choose this field. It's also in a way like a self-portrait. Yeah, normally I do like a rough sketch, mainly for the composition, and then I took that as a base and improvise everything. And of course you can not make a really precise sketch, so I prefer always to improvise and see the sizes and make it smaller or bigger right in the moment. So that is a particularity of the walls I paint. More than half is improvised. Sometimes it's really far from the original sketch, the result. But maybe the main idea of putting like some black elements like in the corners and doing this like a flat, like kind of like a landscape in the bottom. Those are the elements that I was clear on. Then what I put, it came after. I think I always been interested in the caricature and the comic and the fun and the exaggeration, and I think in a way I learned how to draw looking at many comic books, and this is a big influence. So I think many of the faces and the things that they are like very exaggerated with the nose or the teeth or even excess of maybe like bloody things, it comes a little bit from this education of comic books, like a little bit like popular culture. But at the same time I was really influenced by all the museums I visit as a child. So it's like in opposition, one that is very cheap popular culture, and then you have the other side, which is the fine art. So I try to use both elements. Yes, I think all these paintings have a lot to do because with these kind of images, for example, in the 14th century, the Flemish that were making all these hells and nightmares of the saints and the temptations, they have a lot of humor also, and also all this like bloody and people without skin and people without heads and torture and all this. I think it goes together. Well, I think one of the strategies of the religion is about fear. So inflicting fear on the other people, it's a way of controlling them. So I think this also has to do with what you see on the news and all this like a state and wars, and this I think is also like a religion that people believe, and every day you have to check the newspaper and see this horror of the things that are happening. And I think it's very similar to, not very far from the hells they used to paint in the 14th century. I think it's very close to that. Especially in Mexico now, this is in a really bad situation. So you always see in the newspaper all this, like, they found like 20 heads in the graveyard without the body, or they found like these mass graves, or these places where they burned people alive. So it's like super similar to the apocalypse images from the 14th century. So I try to use also many modern elements in this, mixing the elements of the religion, but also other elements like maybe horror movies or even newspapers. The pornography and erotic, I think it's the contrapart of the violence, no? It's in a way like the erotic force that drives the human being to reproduce, to survive in a way, not to die. So I think it's in like the main forces that drive the human brain is erotic and thanatic at the same time. So you will have all these two parts. It's not that one is good and one is bad, it's just like two different parts, a little bit like the yin-yang, that one could not exist without the other. You could not have love if you don't have hate. So in a way, many things in these paintings have to do with this duality, masculine and the feminine, and also like the war and love. I play a lot of putting images that normally they're not supposed to be together, and putting them together to create a different speech. And in a way, I think they talk not in a very straight, linear way. I think they are very chaotic and like a dream that you cannot remember exactly. It's only like flashes of images, and this will cause a sensation, more like sensorial. And I think I prefer to tell a story in this way that is not only one way to understand it, that many people will see the painting and each one will interpret the things in the way the culture or the way they are or the sensitive they have. They will see different things.